Bro, I'm actually gonna fire that. Like, Eddie's gonna fire me. Whatever.
And Eddie doesn't actually not. I think
How much
yeah.
power does this guy have?
I don't think he can fire you, but like me and Eddie are like the Ontario vice presidents, bro.
Oh man. I don't know what this was. Mm. All right, Richard. I gotta name drop Guelph. Oh my God. Wait, dude. What? Bruh. All right, it's gonna be a second. I think we're waiting for one more person. All right, so it looks like everybody's here. So first thing let's do is just pick up the homework questions from last time. And just in case, like I kind of sound like a new person, I'm Victor, and I'll be your teacher for the next 3, this one and the next 2. Okay, so let's look at the question. So the first thing we have here, question 1 is create a loop that will loop through all the numbers from 0 to 100 and print out every number squared. So does anybody have some sort of like ideas, or what did you guys do to solve this question? Okay, feel free to chat it, but I guess since this is starting a class, I can just kind of go through this one. So over here was my solution. It's pretty straightforward, right? So for whatever in range to 101, just print that number and then squared. And so here we have, as you can see, from 0 to 1000 or 10,000. And so this only really, this is a pretty simple question. Like there's one thing you just have to note here is that when you're doing range, we want to do the first like 0 to 100, and that's actually 101 numbers, right? Because we start from 0. Oh wait, now on to the second question. Here we have write a program that will display the following series and their sum. And so we have pretty much just like adding a big chain of, I'm not sure you guys learned this, but reciprocals, which is when like you'll have like 1 over a certain number. Okay, so yeah, let's type this one solution. So the first thing you can do is over here, as you can see, n is a number entered by the user. So the first thing you have to do is we'll sort of write code that allows for somebody to input a number in n, right? So let's start off with n equals input, and then some sort of prompt to like enter a number. And it's important to note here that when you input a number, it'll show up as a string, right? But we need to add up numbers, and you can't add up strings, right? So we have to convert whatever this input is into an integer. And let's do that here. Okay, and the next thing you have to do is over here, we can see that we have to add up all these numbers, right? We have to get to the sum. So now let's introduce the sum variable. Let's call it sum, and let's say right now equals 0. And so now what we have to do is we have to find a way to actually add all these numbers to the sum, right? All right, yeah, Richard. Do you want to type your question? Oh, okay. Okay, I guess let's misclick. Okay, so yeah, so now like continuing where I left off, now we have to find a way to actually, calculate all of this. And so for this, we need some sort of loop, right? Because like basically we're just repeating the same thing over and over again. And unless you want to write everything out, yeah, loop is much more efficient. So for this one, let's just use a while loop. So let's say while n, which is the entered number, is greater than 0. Oh, shoot. We can say the sum So yeah, well, n is greater than 0. Well, every time we'll add to the sum 1 over n. And every time after we do that, we'll decrease n by. So give me 1 second. Okay, so let's try running this first, see if it works. So I don't know, let's write something easy. It's like 1 should just be 1, right? It's pretty straightforward. And then 2 should be 1 plus 1 over 2, which should be 1 plus 0.5, and then we have 1.5. So let's see if that works. 1.5. 3 should be 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3, which would something around like 1.8. So let's see if that works. Okay, so this works, but sort of take a deeper look at like why everything is functioning properly. So what we're doing is that we're starting off with this 1n, right? So for in this case 3, and so right now in this 3 scenario, the first thing that's happening is let's read this. So while n is over 0, and so right now n is 3, and means this while statement is true, and then you can follow through the code in it. So this is true while n is 3. This sum, you can add 1 over 3 to it. So right now our sum is 0.3333, keep going. And then after we're done adding this, we decrease n by 1. So then now we have n is 2, right? And while n is 2, it's still greater than 0. We go through the while loop again. We add 1/2 to our sum, and then we minus 1 from n again. And then we get to n equals 1, right? And then add 1, and then we get to n equals 0. And once we get all the way down to n equals 0, this while statement stops being true, and then the program skips across this while statement, and the sum is printed out. Okay, like I just want to clarify again, if anybody has any sort of questions, doesn't understand anything, or I'm talking too quick, just feel free. And I would encourage you to ask anything on the chat if you need help. Okay, so now let's go to question 3. So question 3 here is write a program using a for loop that will take in a string as an input and print out the total number of times the letter E or A was found inside the string. So anybody who's solved this question want to sort of type in chat? Oh, the first question, yeah, sir. Okay, can we do it? We'll do it at the end. I think we'll go back to it. Okay, so 3. Does anybody want to sort of let me know any sort of initial ideas or thoughts you had when you're looking at this question? Well, I guess we have a class today, but since nobody really has any ideas right now, I'll start off with sort of thinking my thought process. So the first thing I kind of notice, or my first kind of idea when I'm looking at this question is I want to sort of go through every single letter in order and see if it equals either E or A, right? So let's say I have the word Amazon. Okay, so right, in this case, I want to sort of go through the first letter. So the first letter is A. Does this equal A or E? If it does, I'll sort of add 1 to maybe a sum variable, right? And then I'll move on to the next letter, M. So does M equal A or E? If it does, I'll add 1 to my sum variable, and then I'll keep going along in order like that. Okay, so let's see what this would look like in code. So the first thing here, we know is that, yeah, this program is taking in some sort of input. So let's start off with actually just, taking in an input. So I like to call, what should we call this variable? Let's call it S for string, or just string. So string equals input, and then let's say enter is string. Maybe let's place one. And let's call how many times will the variable for how many times E and A were found inside the string here. Let's call that, say, counter. So we'll have counter right now equals 0. Okay. So really quickly before we go more into the problem, just one thing that is pretty important to notice here is that this question specifically asks to find like lowercase e and, oh, well, here it says E or A, right? And E or A, like the E can be either a lowercase e and A or an uppercase E or A. And like, as a human, like if we just saw an E or A that's lowercase or uppercase, you know it's an E or you know it's an A. But computers are like, I don't know, not very smart in that way, right? So we have to actually find a way to make sure it recognizes like a capital E or a capital A, if that makes sense. And I think there's a bunch of solutions you can sort of do to solve this problem. But like, here's mine. So what I did was I made a new variable. So let's do called lowercase string. And let's make this equal to string dot load. Okay, so what this does is this lower function just pretty much will convert every single letter in this the string variable, into a lowercase letter, right? So let's say if my string that I put in is like A, B, D, F. Once I, push it through and I use the lowercase function, lowercase, underscore string, this variable will be A, B, D, F, like that. Just in case you didn't know. Okay, and so now, like I mentioned earlier, now we have to find a way to sort of check every single letter in order. And over here in this question, I believe it asks, it asks read a for loop. So let's see, for x in range, okay, let's make x in range. Okay, so what I'm doing here is for like a number in the range, right? That's somewhere range inside of the string. So let's say like what this is for is like, let's say I have like a word like bead. There's only 4 letters, right? So I don't want to like check if like the 5th letter or like the 6th letter that doesn't exist is an A or E. So if lowercase string equals an A, then we can do our count plus equals 1. Okay, so right now we have here is that we start off with x is 0, right? So the first thing we do is for x right now, so x equals 0, we'll check the 0th or like the first, like 0 is like in B. Technically B is the first letter, but like in coding it's the 0th, right? So we'll check the first letter, and if the first letter equals an A, then we'll put +1 on our counter. But Now we did A, now let's do E. So let's do an elif. E. Also do counter plus equals 1. All right, so now like we've checked, right, the 0th letter or the first letter, but we have to like check every single letter, right? So let's make X and let's add 1 to X every time we run through this for loop. At the end, we can do print. And then, actually, just to see, let's print out by lowercase string. Okay, so let's run. Let's put in a string. So let's first start with like maybe like A, E. So there should be 2, right? Just 1 A, 1 E. Oh, and oh, sorry, I added. Um, oh shoot, I'm sorry. Well, he actually it's the not the lowercase string equals A. It's like the specific letter. So you would have to do like the X letter in this string. Okay, let's try this. Okay, yeah. So now we have the right answer here too. Let's try something else. Like let's try with like word that doesn't have only E's and A's. So it's maybe like B. Okay, it's 2 as well. This is right. And then now let's talk about that sort of like capital letters case that we mentioned earlier. So let's see if we type capital word like elephant. Right, this answer should be 3. Right, and so what happens is first we turn this capital elephant into all lowercase, and then we count E's and A's by going through each letter in order, and then asking the machine if it's equal to A or E. Okay, that's question 3. Let's move on to question 4. Okay, so write a program that will use a for loop to sum the even numbers from 1 to 100 inclusive. Make sure you declare the proper variables. Okay, so oh, okay. Let's see. How should we approach this one? So first thing again, since the sum 1 again, we'll definitely need like a sum variable. So let's just say sum equals 0. Next thing we know is that we have to add all these even numbers, and we have to use a for loop to do that. Okay, so let's start off with 4. Okay, let's come back to 4x in range. Okay, and remember here that range works kind of funny, where if you actually want to do the first 100, you have to go to like the 100 first, technically. So for x in range 1 to 101, so the first 100 letters, if x modulo or mod 2 equals 0, so if x is even, then when it's divided by 2, the remainder should be 0. It's even, then we will add that number onto our sum. And like if it's odd, then the number won't be added. So x. Yeah, so we'll add x for sum, and then we will increase our x. And then let's print out sum. Let's see. balance. Oh, yeah, forgot the one here. Okay, and we have 2550. Let's do some quick math, see if this makes sense. So what you can do for here is like maybe 2 plus 100 divided by I should switch so. Okay, and yeah, it's 2550. Yep. So just a quick recap. Whenever you have a sum, right? Whenever you see sort of like you want to calculate the sum or you want to calculate something in a question like this, first thing obviously you need, like right away is that you need the sum variable, right? From then on out, we know we need to use a for loop to add all the numbers, so we write this for loop, right? And we put it from range 1 to 101 because we want to calculate 1 to 100. Make sure you always like add an extra 1 to the second number here, right? Because if we did this, which would make more sense, we would add all the numbers or the even numbers from 1 to 99. Okay, and so now we go through all the numbers. We see if a number is even, so if it's divided by 2 is a remainder of 0, we add that number onto our sum value, our sum variable, and then we add 1 to x to move on to the next number, see if it's even. And so that's sort of what you think it's doing. So first, the machine should be checking 1. You try to divide 1 by 2, and the remainder is 1. So it doesn't add it, and then we go to 2. We modulo 2 by 2. And then so 2 divided by 2, we'll get a remainder of 0. So then we'll add 2 onto our sum, and then we'll add 4, and then 6, and keep going on all the way to 100. Okay, and somebody mentioned that they didn't see question 1, so let's take a quick look at it here. Oh, shoot. Okay, so for question 1, we just have here, for whatever in range 101, so like 0 to 100, we will print out that, to the power of 2 or squared. So we run this, we see like first number is 0, so 0 squared is 0, and then 1 squared is 1, and we go all the way down here to the last number, which is 10,000, which is 100 squared. Yeah, so you're just like printing all the numbers, but squared. Okay, so now we've done homework. Let's start on with our lesson for today. Okay, so today we're actually going to be doing a project, which is pretty exciting. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a number guessing. So let's take content. So today we're going to go first. We're going to do a quick lesson on importing modules. So sort of taking code from other people and inserting it into ours, right? Then we're going to move on to like the 2 functions here, modules, random and time, specific ones that will help improve our program, make it look better. And then finally, we'll be introducing the project and we'll be spending some time in class to work on it. Okay, so first off is modules. So let's see. What are Python libraries? So a library in Python is pretty much just like a public library, right? Like it's like a space or like sort of a way that you can access different functions here or code written by other people. And so this is useful because like a lot of time, right? Like if you had to write out absolutely everything by yourself in Python, it would take forever. And so just being able to borrow from people saves you a lot of time. It makes everything a lot easier. And so, yeah, these libraries can help us with things from anything like really simple things like here, a random number generator, or like today we're gonna be doing random, all the way to more complex topics like machine learning. And so like these libraries, basically in your Python code or like, REPL you're using, there's gonna be some built-in libraries that like are already imported, right? But if you imported every single library, it'd be like way too much for your handle, like a computer probably explode. And so most, well, a lot of useful libraries you have to import manually. And what we do is we do that by using this sort of import keyword. And so after you use this import keyword, sometimes you also have to take out like specific things from like this, like one sort of like subject, right? So it's just like in a book, it's like borrowing like a specific chapter from a book. Yeah, so right now it says here we will be needing this, and it says here is once a library has been imported, you may access all the functions and methods that are part of said library. Okay, so let's sort of just see this example of this. Okay, so here we have the random module, the random library thing. All right, so you see here this import keyword. So first thing you have to do always in order to use any library that's not like, or module that's not built in, is you import it. So import random, and then here we print random.randint 110. And so what this does is just to print a random number, anywhere from 1 to 10 inclusive. So here, what's important to notice is that we see this code on the top works, but this code down here shows some sort of name error. And so why this is because in the second example here, the code is trying to refer to a module that hasn't been imported. So the computer has like no idea what this sort of random.randint means. Yeah, because over here it says built in, right? Because some libraries are just already loaded in, even without you having to import. Okay, so now that we sort of covered like the basics of like what libraries and modules are, move on to two that we'll be using or talking about specifically today, which are random and then time. Okay, so we see here first is the random library. So the random library can help us to access different methods that allow us to generate random integers within a certain range. So we saw this working earlier, right? When we chose a random number from 1 to 10. And so just like any other library, using this library involves importing it first. And over here, we show that we can import a library with code like this. So the import word, and then the name of your library, which in this case is random. And so once you import this library, or this random library, you can access any sort of the functions that are built in or that come along with this library. And just important, like just for coding, it's really important that your stuff is like readable to not like only yourself, but to other people, right? Somebody wants to edit your stuff. It's gonna be really confusing if everything's just all over the place. So what we also do is we always import libraries to the start of the program. It's just like how usually we would try to declare variables like at the top. All right, so now it's a demonstration of this random library. So we see here first we import this random module, very important. And then now here we are printing a random number from like 1 to 3 inclusive. Right, so the first time we run it, it gets 2, and then we run 1, and then a 3. And so if you keep running this over and over, it'll just keep showing random numbers from 1 to 3. All right, so you can see from this demonstration, the output will never be the same when using this method. Yeah, and it's important to know that like this randint method, right here, will return a number from 1 to 3 inclusive. Right, so let's say like 1 to 10 inclusive means like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 to 10 not inclusive would not include 1 or 10. So just be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So now we've covered this sort of randint module. Let's go on to this time library. So the time library can help us implement a time element to our program. And so using certain functions, we're able to create delays within our program. So similar to the random library, importing the time library will involve the following line of code. So we see again, like when you're importing something, use this import keyword, and then after you're gonna write the name of the library you want to. So in this case, instead of random, it's time here, as you can see. And the function that will like be using from this time library for our purposes will be this time or like the sleep function. So right now we see it's time dot sleep x, where x the number of seconds of delay. Right. So normally when your computer is trying to run code, it will try to run everything as fast as possible. And so like I don't know if you noticed this earlier, but let's see. Like earlier when we were doing this sort of problem, when you click run, like it just shows it immediately. If I use this time.sleep x module, I could delay, stuff from appearing, right? So it's kind of useful like visually in that way if you want, I don't know, for whatever purposes you want to have delay. Okay, so now we've learned a little bit about libraries and the random and time library. Let's start off with introducing our first project. Okay, so the first project we have in this course is going to be the number guessing game, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so number guessing game is essentially the computer will generate a random number, and then like the human or the user of the code will guess what number the computer generated. And so it's not just that, like that's pretty basic, but in order to make it a little bit more difficult, there's a lot of specific requirements you can see here. So first off, there must be at least 2 difficulties. So maybe this can mean like you can choose to guess a random number from 1 to 3, or you can choose to guess a random number from 1 to like 100, right? And then 2, the user will have a certain amount of guesses, right? If the user has infinite guesses, you can obviously always get it. 3 here, the number must be random. So we want you to actually use this sort of randint module or this function that you just learned. 4 here, the program should tell the user if they guess correct or not, right? So there's not really a point of guessing if you don't know if it's right or not. And 5 here, the code must be documented using comments. So in my demonstrations, since like, we don't have like insane amount of time, I didn't write comments, but I mentioned this earlier briefly. Whenever you're coding, like if you ever like have like a problem, let's say with your code, and like if you have like 30 lines of code, it's not a big deal. But if you have like a big problem, let's say like 1,000 lines of code or something, and you realize something doesn't work, and you go all the way back and try to just read through uncommented code, it's like impossible to fix. And like if it's somebody else looking at your code, it's even worse, right? So that's why there's like a really big emphasis on like not only just arranging your code in a way that makes sense, but also like using comments specifically to just like let people know what everything's doing. Okay, so how do you guys want to do it? Like you guys, I can put you guys in breakout rooms where you sort of like to discuss in small groups in this project, and then I think maybe we can meet back in like 45 minutes and we can sort of discuss what we've done and like what our ideas are. Okay, so let's breakout rooms. Okay, and just like I don't know, raise your hand or you can join back to the main room and talk to me if you need sort of any help. Uh, Joel, are you, Joel or Joel, are you still with us right now? class is almost ending. So I've had a couple of you guys come to me with some questions. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so for anybody who didn't have a chance or didn't ask anything earlier, if you need help with anything or something didn't make sense, now's just a really great time to ask. Like usually, like you can always email or ask in classroom, but I might not be able to, or Alex, one of us might not be able to respond right away. So Okay, guys. So it is 8 p.m. So technically we are done. Um, I don't know if you want to ask anything or you still need a bit more time on anything. Feel free to stay for a bit longer. I can stay for a bit longer if you need to. But otherwise, yeah, just have a good weekend and see you in a couple of days.